Welcome everyone to our discussion on artificial intelligence and transforming NDR. Very excited to be on this side of a panel for the first time and to put my fellow panelists on the hot seat. My name is Jason Besner. I'm the Director for Partnerships at the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity. We hope that it is the most helpful organization you've never heard of. We have had a mandate for about 5 years now. We're part of the Communications Security Establishment. 5 years ago, we were created to bring together all of the operational arms within the federal government for cybersecurity. So that's bringing together the GovCert of Shared Services Canada and the National Cert, which was at Public Safety. I've been with CSC for about 21 years. The last 10 to 12 or so have been on the cybersecurity side, and we don't talk too much about the first 10 to 12 years. I spent a little stint at CSIS as well, but don't hold that against me. We're going to jump right into this. I'm going to start by asking my panelists to introduce themselves, beginning with Nabil.
Hi, I'm Nabil Mian. I'm with Roots. I've been working with them. It's been about 3 years now. I take care of their network and security infrastructure. Nice to meet you all.
Yeah, hey, and I'm Matt Balcer. I'm the Director of Solution Engineering for SentinelOne here in Canada. Been with the company for 5 years, since basically we had a footprint in Canada.
Hi, I'm Mike Berthold. I work as a Senior Solutions Architect for Okta, where I've been for the past 2.5 years. I've been working in identity for 20 years. I'm based in Montreal.
Wonderful. Let's get right into it. Start with a bit of a scene setter. AI is pretty buzzwords, get thrown around quite a bit. It has subdisciplines. It has different variations. Nabil, when we're talking about artificial intelligence, what are we talking about?
Yeah, it is a buzzword these days. Everyone is adopting it very drastically. In every organization, I think most of the operational leaders, they want to rely on artificial intelligence. Specifically in the industry of cybersecurity, I think it has improved our deep visibility, vulnerability management, and quite a few other areas, which are very important for any organization, I believe.
Fantastic. Matt, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, would you be disappointed if I just said it was math? Because that's essentially what AI is, right? It's computational algorithms that take data and do what we can't. Compute it way faster, make decisions faster than we can, parse it faster than we can. And so, yeah, I agree with Nabil. You take that and you apply it to cybersecurity, and you're getting a running head start to where we have a pretty big problem.
Absolutely. Mike, anything to add?
The only thing I'll add is sometimes I refer to it as IA, intelligent automation, because there's not a ton of creativity, but there's a ton in terms of automation, and large language models is a really good example of that, where we can actually go through a ton of data and get an output, whereas before it would have been almost impossible for somebody to be able to create that manually.
So there's a lot of applications of AI today, and certainly it's growing. We at the Cyber Center like to first scare people and talk about the threats of emerging technology while at the same time providing solutions to better defend yourself. So we're going to start to talk about some of the challenges at first. Matt, how does AI present challenges for cybersecurity today?
I think one of the things I get asked the most is AI friend or foe, right, in cybersecurity? Because if we're going to use it, well, can't the hackers use it to write malicious code faster than they ever did before? And the one thing I sort of answer that is, and why I think it's more of a friend than a foe or a challenge is, again, it's math, right? It's going back to data, it's pulling that data, and it's using that data to compute something and create something. By that standard, if a hacker asks it to create malicious code, I can then ask it to solve that, right? So I can ask it to create the detection model or the behavior model that corresponds to that code. So I definitely think it's, at least hopefully, I understand the business challenges of creating strategy and things like that, but I definitely think it'll end up at the end of the day much better friend than foe, and less of a challenge than something that's a catalyst for change.
Fantastic. Mike, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, it's interesting because whenever you see news reports, it's always about shock and fear. And the greatest example, or the most recent one, is this Hong Kong corporation where there was basically a deep fake video conference, and somebody was convinced that they were talking to their CFO and a bunch of other people at the company, and no, it was a complete deep fake. And they ended up transferring, 200 million Hong Kong dollars out of the corporation, which is about 34 million Canadian. So it's going to be an arms race, right? The bad guys definitely are going to try taking advantage of AI and all of these toolings. But to Matt's point, there's a huge positive to this as well. And so up front, it seems a little scary and it seems like it's fraught with danger, but it is also going to enable a lot of automation and productivity and things that we can't do today manually. So it's very exciting, but definitely it's early days.
I feel in this thing, the most important thing is your data source from where you are pulling the information. So that in the industry we are in, we have to be very precise about how we are categorizing the data, what are data sources, because any wrong information what we are pulling can result otherwise, which you don't actually want to see. So data sources and managing data is the key to get the clear results, to give you a direction what you are looking for. Otherwise, it can create a lot of problems for the industry we are in. And obviously, confidence is also very important on your tools, whatever you're using. We do talk about deep visibility, we do talk about other things, but again, it ends up on your data source, what you are feeding to the system, and hence you will get the results as well, that yes, this is accurate, we can follow these results.
Fantastic. So we at the Cyber Center have always sort of, and I don't think we're alone in this, saying that cyber crime is probably the cyber threat that most general Canadians are likely to encounter. And we still see that phishing happens to be the #1 vector year after year after year. Does anybody want to speak to where they see or have already seen AI used to make a better fish or better lures?
I mean, I can jump in there. I think what we're seeing now is because generative AI is being used by all levels of business to help them be more productive, do things like write emails, it is becoming a little bit more difficult to tell the difference between something that was written by AI, by your boss who just didn't have the 20 minutes to write you an email, or someone who's using very general language to draw you in and have you and create an action. So I think you used to be able to tell human intent a little bit, even in a text or an email, and now it's becoming a little bit more difficult to do that because we're using this tool for that reason.
Long gone are the days of huge fonts and bad grammar. Nabil, you mentioned data, and I'm going to jump into that next. So data is always a challenge to manage and defend. Mike, what specifically is a vulnerability with advances in technology like AI? What do we have to be paying more attention to?
It's a great question. And realistically, it's a question of speed. Bad actors in particular are very quick to adopt new technologies, right? And it's because there's a low barrier to entry for them. When you think about the good guys, all of us in the cybersecurity domain, we have I don't want to call it a weight, but technical debt and legacy technology are definite things that we have to deal with. And so we can't quickly adopt new technologies without kind of integrating them properly. And Nabil made a really good point. The data source has to be vetted and has to be useful to the model, whereas the bad guys can quickly and with a lot of agility pivot to things that work, and they can do this iterative process to figure out what works best. So I think the cautionary point there is it's definitely here, and so you need to at least start developing strategies and defenses to counteract the fact that it's being used by these bad guys.
And you better hurry, because quantum's right around the corner.
That's right.
Anything to add, Nabil or Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I think the point's been made, right? It's guardrails, 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 guardrails. And I actually had a customer bring up an interesting point today. It's not just about the data in the background, but identifying who's asking the question. Right. How are we going to guardrail that? I think that's actually the biggest problem we're facing right now, because if a 6-year-old student asks the AI question, I only wanted to give a certain set of information, whereas if a 20-year-old teacher asks the question, I may want a different data source to be pulled from, right? So yeah, guardrails and where that data source lies and how we guard it is going to be very important.
Adding to that, I think there's another challenge because we are using different level of technology, and every organization is different. So integration of those data sources, in some cases we have seen that they are not there yet. You know, we face a lot of challenges in bringing on all the technologies what we're using, you know, bringing the logs in or bringing the information in. So that is also an area where I think we need some improvement, or it will get improved with the passage of time, that we are collecting the information, which is important for us. Because being a security professional, we always have a fear of unknown. And that fear of unknown, that gives us sleepless nights and all this, and it's not very comforting. But I think with the passage of time, the technology will adopt a lot of different tool sets which are available in the market and give us a realistic results.
Nabil, you're a pro at teeing up my next questions. So, as industry expert, what different approaches do you see developing across that ecosystems in terms of tools and technology and things that may have been nascent in the past and we weren't paying that close attention to it? What do we see changing in the ecosystem that we should start paying attention to now?
I mean, I definitely see it becoming the front end to a lot of tooling, and I think that's mostly because tools as a concept is kind of dying. We are very much a data-centric, architecture-based, environment now, and the only way that we can deal with the amount of data we're expected, I look at it from cybersecurity, right? If I really want to understand an incident, it's not the detection that comes from my endpoint tool or my firewall or my email tool or my identity tool. It's all the data that came from the user, the system, the network, and putting that together and being able to analyze it. So I'll throw this out to the audience. Raise your hand if you can compute 50 billion telemetry events in 5 minutes. Now take that and go, can you ask the next question and the next question and the next question? So that's where I see us going, and that's where I see us really taking this is, it's not meant to replace people, it's to give people an efficiency that they cannot accomplish today.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think what's kind of unique, at least in information technology, but in cybersecurity specifically, we've been doing a lot of what is being broadcast now as AI. We were doing that already, right, in terms of modeling and in terms of trying to analyze data. The issue has always been computing power, right, and how much computing power can we throw at a SIEM tool, or how much computing power can we throw at our MDR, XDR, and now that we're getting to the precipice where we have so much computing power, we're able to now put in these large language models and other modeling techniques to actually churn through the data. So what's exciting about that for me in terms of kind of like where this is going is when you look at phishing as an example, there's a human element, right? And it's the humans that are falling for very sophisticated at times, baits. Whereas if we can interject AI into that flow and we can actually analyze the behavior of the user, something that would have been very difficult to do other than very, very high level, now we can actually go really deep and say, hey, this is Mike. Is Mike doing what Mike usually does? Now we can get down to that really fine grain level. And I think that's really exciting because as much as there's a lot of danger and risk, there's a lot of opportunity to help improve those sorts of scenarios.
Excellent. I love that opportunity. Hold that thought. In terms of the crown jewels, so how has the advent of AI changed the calculus on data or system prioritization? And any model or network that if you want to jump into OT, if you want to jump into a strict IT network, has that changed the way that we've prioritized and put value on the data that organizations hold?
Yeah, I feel that the data is always an asset. Data is something which is very core for us to get the results out of it. Yes, there are some concerns about false positive. There are some concerns about what are the actual actionable items that we have to look into. Yes, this AI has really given us a lot of maturity in terms of giving us results, at least because being sitting on a computer, if you ask one analyst to look into all this data, he'll shoot himself. And those were the days when this whole thing started, and people were looking into Seam, Splunk, and there were different tools available what people were using. I think AI on top of that generative AI in general has added a lot of value, and giving us a good results.
Yeah, and just one thing I want to mention. Those of you who know or have heard, there's sometimes a requirement for steel that has no radioactive isotopes, but the problem is it's in the air because of the atmospheric test. We're getting to the point now where we will be able to manufacture, but for years and decades now, we've actually mined old shipwrecks for steel that is untouched by radioactive isotopes because they've been sitting on the bottom of a body of water. Similarly, the data that is being fed into these large language models, now we're getting to the point where we're starting to get pollution by other large language models. And so it becomes really important to really well define the data sets, but also ensure that we're doing it in a way that we're not going to introduce those kind of that kind of noise that will greatly, negatively impact, I guess, the results of what you're getting out of the system and the model.
So we've talked about AI as a threat, how it can help threat actors, how it lowers the bar to entry for some of the threat actors, and paying really close attention to where the data is coming from, and not just taking for granted what we're working with. So aside from all the challenges, what are the opportunities that are being created for cybersecurity experts in this space? You talked a little bit about the behavior and expected and unexpected behavior. It's something at the Cyber Center that we look at a lot, and it's one of the reasons that we can say our defenses run 24/7. These are not people in front of screen defenses. These are non-deterministic analytics that we have running. So that's one advantage that we've used, but hey, Mike, maybe you could talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you think about, again, it's a data problem, right? And that's really what AI is starting to solve with these new models. You think about the need for a layered defense, right? If you're going to adopt, let's say, a zero trust posture, it's not just going to be at the network layer and the MDR layer and the data layer and the identity layer. It's going to be at all of those layers. And so now we need to have these, shared signals framework as a really good example, these standards-based opportunities to share data between the different layers. But as you can imagine, the more we share that data, it becomes an exponential growth in data. And so AI will help us actually be able to leverage all of these different signals to better react to whether it's an ongoing attack or something novel. So that's really exciting because we've always been building out almost in silos, and now we're getting to the point where we're going to start building out these defense in depth postures where we're sharing that information.
Yeah, and I think efficiency has always been the challenge in cybersecurity. The hacker will always have the running head start, right? Mm-hmm. They came up with the code. They've launched the code. You're now victim to that. You're inevitably always playing defense. AI gives us the chance to be as efficient as possible, right? I asked the question, how can any of you do that kind of math in 5 minutes? Well, now we're talking about stuff that needs to be done in a matter of seconds. So it's, I said to my solution team the other day, this is a problem that money and people can't solve. There's just not enough cyber experts that can, and even if there were enough, they can't behave like a computational algorithm. And, even if you could find the top ones and pay them infinite dollars, you'd still run into the same problem. So the efficiency that AI brings to that big data problem, like Mike was saying, is just something that we can't solve any other way right now that I'm seeing.
Correlation of the information on the very timely manner, identifying anomalies. These are the very key takeaways from the AI, which I think every industry is enjoying that at the moment.
So we're past the halfway mark. I've got another big question that I'm sure all of our panelists can interject some great ideas, but I'm going to open it to the floor if there's anybody that would like to ask a question of any of the members.
Don't be shy.
Yes.
We've been talking kind of in general terms about AI, but can you be more specific around use cases where you expect to see AI used for cyber defense in the near future?
Yeah, I can definitely jump in there. So we're actually using it today as, so I talked about the cyber analyst problem, right? So you get hit with an incident. Within minutes, you have to not decide just not what detections you're getting and what response you want to do, but you need to probably do a widespread investigation of what you haven't discovered yet in a matter of seconds. I could, sit in front of a large stream of system data, user data, network data, and try and parse that, try and query it for specific indications of where the attack started or stopped. Or I could type into a generative AI a general, easy English question. Show me the indicators of this flavor of ransomware, which was just detected by my EDR. And it'll come back with a data stream. Now, if you do it right, that's not where it ends, right? The generative AI should then give you the next question to ask, and the next question to ask. And then maybe, if it's really good, start to suggest some actions you can take, right? Not just tell you what questions and what data's there, but suggestive action. And I think that's the actual use case we're exploring right now from cyber defense, for sure. Actually, I didn't realize this was taken away. I was never a good kid and never told to share.
No, I love that Matt mentions that, because we're kind of taking a similar approach in terms of it also kind of humanizes the interface in a certain way, which is funny because when you talk about AI, often we talk about dehumanization, but this is a means to enable people who maybe don't have either the technical knowledge to craft a proper query, right, in a specific language, or it's just not their day-to-day, but now they've been asked to kind of jump in. And so now we can widen some of the access to a lot of really detailed logs and information in a way that we haven't been able to before. So that is also very exciting.
So from the consumer point of view, I think most of the people we work with, they're all technical. And when we have to bring a case to the senior management that what actually happened, AI actually sometimes really help us. We can easily ask them questions and their answers are there. And yes, this generative AI, especially when we are talking about the incident response, or you want to have a complete track, what happened, how incident occurred. Like it came from it was an anomaly, some end user click on some email, or there are multiple use cases which you can see can bring in vulnerability or some sort of attack to your organization. So if you have a timely action and deep visibility to your infrastructure, definitely there's an advantage which AI bring into the table.
I like that senior management sit rep. Just don't let them see the question you asked. Yes, sir.
Matt, so coming back to your comment saying that the AI can give you the next steps and all that towards a bad actor, what if the bad actor affected or influences the AI to give you the answer he wants you to give? Example, I think it's a reporter in Montreal that asked AI 20 days if there's pedophiles in the area. On the 21st day, his name came up as a pedophile because he questioned it. So
I'm happy you've paid attention to my talks, Bishad. So yeah, that's actually a true story. And I think, I think Nabil, you mentioned it, and Mike, you mentioned it as well. Control and protection of the data has now become the most important piece, right? Because the whole concept of AI not being biased is the biggest false number we've put out there. Oh, it's just a computer, it doesn't take sides. Oh, no, it does. And you can teach it which side to take. So we have to be aware of that. and it becomes infinitely more important then to how we protect that data. You know, you mentioned earlier, Jason, crown jewels. Now the crown jewels is your data stream, whether it's cybersecurity or whatever else you're using to back end the front, you know, the AI front end. We have to protect that like nothing else. Like the restrictions on that data should be nil access to nobody. You know, like you can't have humans intervening there at all. And yeah, you know, you have to make sure consistently test the logics in the background to make sure that has someone been asking an awful question 20 times in a row that now has said, well, I better find an awful answer.
Anyone else? All right, while you're thinking, I'll ask a question. We talked about catching up with the threat actors and them always being ahead. So this is a question for the senior management and the C-suite in the room. What do we need to change in terms of how we think about investments in an organization? Does this change the way we think about talent development, recruitment, and where we're actually investing for the risks to our organization?
I personally think because this is as you said, it's a new buzzword, and there are people already in the cybersecurity field, the resources are very limited. You know, you just go to a market, if you were looking for someone, like I recently hired someone, it took me like 3 months to hire a person. It wasn't easy. So yes, so talent, we have to have in-house programs to polish the talent and, you know, and train them. It's not only on a cybersecurity level, it's a management level as well. Senior management, they all have to understand that how to adopt artificial intelligence more effectively to have a better results. And you know, the groundwork at the back when we are doing that, it takes time. It takes time. Like there are new tools in the market now. Copilot is one of the very known one, which is like, you know, everyone is adopting. But it has its own challenges, and we always try to protect the privacy of the individual as well as the organization. So yes, there is a time where we should invest some on the training of existing staff who are going to be using AI technologies in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think the investment and resourcing question has already been answered for us. We don't get to ask it, unfortunately, right? We don't have more money, but we've got to spend it to defend ourselves. There's not, you know, new, cyber all-stars graduating every day. They're graduating. They need to learn. They need to learn quicker than they used to. So, if that means that we invest a little bit more in something that speeds up that and allows us to do more with less, then I think AI has already answered that question.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add to that is sometimes it can be seen as a magic bullet, like all, top of mind or the latest thing tends to be. We all remember blockchain and how it was going to solve every problem imaginable until it started searching for use cases. So when you look at AI in your organization specifically, I'll say it's definitely an accelerator, right? It helps exponentially increase the impact of things that you may already have in place. If we talk about the maturation journey and identity all the time. If you're still relatively struggling with what you have in place today, AI may help, but it doesn't mean it's going to. And that point that, Nabil made at the start, right? Like the data set is really important. Well, if you don't have good data, then you're really not starting on the right foot. If you're going to adopt something like Copilot, you have to be very cognizant of how you're going to interact with it and how your employees are going to interact with it, because are you going to allow them to post, proprietary data? Are you going to allow them to, ask questions that have personal data? Especially if you're talking about, customer-facing kind of use cases. So it gets really interesting. And so I'm not helping at all. I think I'm creating a lot of different questions instead, but it's all stuff that needs to be kind of considered in that context of what you're asking.
Yeah. Time for one more? Yeah. Certainly, there's something juicy we haven't covered.
New York Times suing OpenAI about using their data.
Yeah, I think it's a funny one, right? Is who are we going to give organizations the ability to opt in and opt out of being part of the global data stream, right? I think, Google experienced this, and, a bunch of other web search tools that no longer exist because Google sort of took over, face this, and some of them, it's why they don't exist anymore. It's because they didn't try and, give organizations the ability to control what data is, searchable when I type in a question to Google. So it is going to become interesting. I think there will definitely be some organizations that are going to have to restrict the sharing of their data. I'm sure even something as simple as like census data. I don't want to be able to type something into ChatGPT and it give me Doug's home address and what his dog eats for dinner. So we want to, but we want to, so yeah, that would be the false positive, Doug. So yeah, I definitely don't think that that's the wrong step. Just, as a community, maybe share more if you can and restrict less, but some data has to stay private. So yeah, I think you'll definitely see a wave now of, nah, don't use my data in your algorithm type organizations, for sure.
Yeah. I think there are quite a few, especially around AI, there are a lot of privacy laws which are also, you would tell better than us, better than anyone, that the government is working on it, and I think adaptability of that we'll see in a very near future, that what would be a right framework to adopt when we are talking about AI.
I have the fortunate position of being operational and not in policy.
Yeah, and just, one of the other things that comes to mind thinking about that, use case with New York Times is an ancillary question is who owns the output of these models, right? Especially if you're using a third-party service. Is it where the data comes from? Is it the service provider? Is it you because you're inputting stuff and then it's outputting and then you can use it? And there's some licensing terms already in terms of like Copilot, but it's a question that still has to be posed because, where there's gray areas, there's lawyers. Where there's lawyers, there's lawsuits. And so it's going to be something that's going to have to be vetted and looked at closely as well.
We're winding down. Last chance from the audience. Yes, sir.
Just more of a statement is, I'm in the education K-12 sector, and we have like a lot of minors, like 17 and under, 18 and under, that are very at risk. I'm French, I have a hard time saying that word, but they're vulnerable. And so it's something to remember. I don't know if there's any other people from the education sector. Like those students can be really affected by AI in their education. Not that we don't block it, we allow students to use it, but if the teachers don't learn how to teach students and they accept just AI answers from ChatGPT or whatever, it brings a risk to our students for the future and also at risk from bad actors using AI to.
Absolutely. We're talking about professionals in the game already, but thinking about students coming up, very important.
And those are all our children, grandchildren, and so on.
Wonderful. Well, with that, I want to thank my panelists for their perspective, for their insights, and their thought leadership. Thank you, CyberX, for inviting me. This has been fantastic. I'm Jason Besner, and I'm overdressed.